Make this thing a little bit more plain. Let me try to do that for you. First thing I need y'all to understand. Number one, it was physically necessary for Jesus to come down here. All right. It was physically necessary for Jesus to come down here. How else could Jesus embrace the sorrows that men went through? Right. That was Paul's DEI. He writes, it behooved him to be made in all things like unto his brother. I'm just going to work the text for y'all. That's what it said. Paul is emphatic and specific in his record that Christ took a likeness to mankind, and not just the ordinary properties of human nature, but also man's deepest sorrow. Pastor Yarber, what you said, in other words, Christ just didn't look like us, y'all. I want y'all to understand that he felt like us. That's right. Amen. The Bible says plainly in John 11:35 that Jesus wept. Now, Christ's likeness was simply a copy of true manhood, that his existence on earth would have done nothing more than laugh and taunted us. But the latter part of this verse lets us know that there was a heavenly purpose for Christ becoming a carbon copy of man. He was preparing to help us, using his qualifications as a merciful and high priest. You can't help nobody through nothing if you ain't never been through nothing. So in order for Jesus to help mankind, he had to become like mankind. Jesus became a man and all of our nauseating bitterness. He became all the human sorrow that makes our hearts bleed and our eyes weep. Paul says that Christ gathered into himself every form of pain, every misery, every weariness, and all the burdens that weigh us down in our spirit. No single ingredient was left out of his bitter cup that ever made man's life miserable and distasteful. And guess what, y'all? Jesus drank all of that cup. That same bitter cup that he passes to us every first Sunday when he charges us to drink all of it. I want y'all to understand that Jesus bore all of our sorrows. The great lesson is that no suffering soul, no harassed heart, no lonely life has ever been able to truthfully say, I got a lot going on. I got to do this by myself because the Lord don't understand it. That's a lie. The truth ain't in you. Whatever you're going through, I want you to understand that the Lord understands whatever you're dealing with. He does understand. Because guess what, y'all? He bore it. All the pain and all the sorrow that we're going through right now, all the things that we go through that test us and twist us and gives us all kind of temptation, I want you to understand that Jesus knows all about it. Amen. The one who had nowhere to lay his holy head down. Guess what, y'all? He knows. The one who was poor and lowly and had to rely on charity from compassionate women. Guess what, y'all? He knows. The one who depended upon others to sustain him. Guess what, y'all? He knows. The one who even had to be buried in somebody else's tomb, Deacon Rogers. Guess what? He knows. I want y'all to understand that Jesus understands whatever it is that you're going through. The sorrows that come from sickness, broken relationships, unreturned love, bitter grief over the loss of a loved one, a heart tortured by ingratitude, because we ought to help somebody and they just showed us some ungratefulness, a physical frame crushed by overwork. I want y'all to understand that Jesus knows all about it. All right. I want y'all to understand that Jesus did not bear some of our grief. I want y'all to know that he bore all of our grief. He did not bear some of the miseries of men. He bore all of them as they forced themselves into his heart. All that dark grief of mankind cast its shadows across his pure, perfectly unselfish soul. We complain when we have to drink a drop of grief, when we going just through a little bit of stuff. I want y'all to know that Jesus drank not only your cup, but he drunk everybody in here's cup. No wonder he cried in the Garden of Gethsemane, Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Can you imagine not only having to take on all the mess, all the stuff you got to go through in this world, and then you got to take on everybody else's stuff too? That's what Jesus did. Yes, y'all. It was physically necessary for Jesus to embrace our sorrows in order to overcome everything. The only way you truly going to overcome something is if you take it head on. You can't run from whatever problems you got or whatever you got to face. You can't turn around and quit on the tough things in life. Guess what? You're going to have to take it on. Point number two, I want you to understand today, Jerusalem, After being physically necessary, number two, it was morally necessary for Jesus to come here. That's Paul's affilio. In other words, Jesus had to take hold of the seed of Abraham. You see, he had no choice. It was a necessity imposed upon him by his purpose, which he had now in full view. There was no other option. I want to tell all of y'all today, all of you have a purpose. God needs all of y'all to do something for him. And while you got time and while the blood runs warm in your vein, you need to be trying to figure out or asking the Lord to reveal to you what your purpose is. I really believe deep down in my heart that member for member, I have the best church in Evergreen, Alabama. I believe I got some of the most talented folks that they sit down on their talent. But if they stop sitting down on it and let God use what they got, he'll get them more than they ever had right now. There's a very striking incident in the scripture that will help us understand the moral necessity of Jesus coming. Paul uses the word that means to take hold. It's the same word used in the narrative where Peter is ready to sink in the water, and Jesus stretches forth his hand and catches him. Peter's war with the waves is an illustration of what Paul means. Here we are, some of us right now, going through the waves and the storms of this life. And just for a little while, we take our eyes up off the Lord, and then we find ourselves sinking and going through all kind of problems. But I stopped by today to tell you, if you keep your eyes on Jesus, no matter what you're going through, no matter what storms come out, no matter what you face, guess what? He's going to stretch out his hand and pull you through whatever situation it is. That's how the Lord is. He stretches out his hand and he takes a hold of our trembling, feeble fingers. And he keeps us above all the waves that have come up in our lives. I want y'all to know that we are God's creation. It will be morally inconsistent for God to allow his creation to be destroyed. Perfection cannot be made imperfect. Therefore, it's a moral necessity that God will dispatch Jesus to rescue us from sin. All that suffering diffused through Christ's life wasn't simply because he was a teacher who took on human form. It was because Christ had to stand firm on his moral principles, no matter what happened, because he had God's purpose in full view. So to say that it behooved him to be made in all things like unto his brethren is not just a matter of physical necessity. I want you to understand Jesus had a moral obligation.